Hey guys, welcome back to LifeLink Pod. I'm your host, Lacey, and this season we're talking all things LifeLink culture. So who we are, what we do, and why we do it. Whether you're here to be inspired, to learn more, or just come along on the journey, we're so excited you're with us. So now, on to the pod. Well, welcome back to the pod, everyone.
It is great to be back.
Welcome back, Pastor Dave, Dad.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Good to be here with you, Pastor Lacey.
Happy recording the podcast day. How are you doing this morning?
It's a good day.
It's a good day.
It's a good day. Started off with racquetball this morning.
Okay, what time do you wake up for racquetball?
Today I was up at 4:30.
4:30.
Yeah.
Do you are you, before you go work out or do anything first thing in the morning, are you a person that's like, I'm going to get up, have a few minutes, or are you like, I'm up, throw my clothes on and go?
No, today I got up and had a few minutes to collect myself, kind of get with God a little bit. Then I had some breakfast.
Before racquetball?
It's, bacon and eggs.
That sounds like barf, like I'm going to vomit.
Well, I assure you, Pastor Lacey, it was not that way.
So do you usually eat before you go work out?
Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Today I did.
I don't feel like I can. I usually also work out first thing in the morning, and especially on cardio days, which I'm assuming racquetball is it's cardio.
Yeah.
Pretty much the whole time?
Yeah, I ran the treadmill for a little bit first, then played racquetball.
Okay. So yeah, if I do cardio and try to eat beforehand, I'm going to barf all over the place.
Well, I have a different constitution.
I guess
apparently.
so. I tried to eat a scoop of peanut butter once before cardio, and the whole time I was like, even this. So I did cardio today, and I drank quite a bit of water, and even that was like, is today the day? Is this going to be it?
Oh no!
I think I'm throwing up. I kept burping as I'm doing burpees, and I had to stop and breathe. So so racquetball.
Yep.
I recently started playing pickleball.
You did?
I did. So we have a pickleball small group, life group at our church right now. And my husband, James, also, you played him this morning in
I
racquetball.
did play him.
You know him. You're aware.
I'm aware of him.
Yeah. And he loves racket sports.
Right.
And so he was like, babe, let's just try going to racquetball. And
Pickleball?
I mean, pickleball. Yeah, not racquetball. Man, I'm a little scarred. There was a game growing up called wall ball. And I feel like it's similar to racquetball, except you don't play with a racket. And I got hit once, and I'm a little scarred from that. But anyways, so he was like, let's just try pickleball. And normally I don't like trying new things. I want to be adventurous. I want to be that person's like, yeah, let's just try it. And if I'm not good, whatever. But my personality is like, I don't want to try something unless I know there's a pretty good chance I could be good at this. And so normally I don't like trying new things unless I know I could probably do that.
Okay, between your mother or myself, who do you feel like you get that from?
You.
Of course.
Yeah. Mom's like, woo,
let's try everything.
Have fun trying.
Remember when she was trying to teach you to paint outside the lines?
Oh my gosh. Well, yes. Okay, so that's a deviation, but we'll go there. So when I was, we were redoing my room when I was 12, maybe 11. And she was like, I have this great idea. Let's have you paint canvases to match your room. So she bought all the supplies and was like, and sure in her head was thinking this is going to be like a wonderful bonding experience.
Right.
And she gives me a blank canvas and she's like, now just go. And I was like, I need a pencil. She's like, no, Lacey, you don't need a pencil. Just create. Just pour yourself out on the canvas. And I straight up had a meltdown. I was like, I just need a pencil. So finally she gave me a pencil and then I could do it.
Right.
And I kid you not, I hated those canvases. She hung them in my room and they weren't perfect.
What did you use the pencil for?
I drew a flower and then I drew a square, what's that called? Like a grid behind it. And then I painted each box a different color and then I had the flower. But one of the flower petals was slightly bigger than all the other ones. And I didn't notice it until I painted it.
Oh no.
And it drove me crazy the whole time. And yet here they were hanging in my room. And of course, Mom's like, they're so beautiful. You're so creative. And I hated them. I absolutely hated them. But anyways, so I don't like to try things unless I know I can be good at them. And I did not want to try pickleball because it's for church. And these people are people that I go to church with and I lead and I don't want to look stupid in front of these people. Next time I'm leading worship, they're looking at me like, she totally biffed it on the court last week, And so.
Have you ever been told you may overthink things?
Yes. Actually, for Mother's Day last year, James bought me a book called Women Who Think Too Much. I still haven't read it,
But you think about it.
but I think about it. So anyways, but I ended up really liking pickleball. I've played a total of, I think 4, maybe 5 times now. And I'm actually getting better. Like, I think I need a better racket, not just
Whoa.
the Amazon one.
No
And I
kidding.
want like a cute little pickleball skirt. So
I've never played.
you probably wouldn't need a pickleball skirt.
I'm going to go with that idea.
Okay.
I probably won't.
I think you should. I think you would like it.
I would probably enjoy it.
You probably would, because if I understand correctly, I think for racquetball, you've got to like really, you're just like hitting that ball.
Most of the time.
And so I think there'd be a little bit of like a recalibration of your swing to be not so intense. So because you'd go out of bounds. Whereas racquetball, like every surface is playable,
Every
right?
surface, yep.
Yeah, it's not that way. And there's a kitchen in pickleball, and you're not.
Kitchen?
Yeah, and you're not supposed to be in it, except sometimes when you can
Never
be.
heard of that.
We'll
There's
have to.
not a kitchen in racquetball.
There's not. How about when Mom gets her new knees?
All right.
We'll double date and we'll play pickleball.
Come on, that'd be
okay,
fun.
that'd be fun. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Nope.
We're talking about our core values and our towel card. And so we're still plugging along on this. We have a lot of things that are core values at our church.
They're very core.
They're very core. They're the most core. And so today we're talking about secondary leadership, which as I was preparing for this, I was like, I really feel like we've talked about this already, but I think it's just because they all connect so well together. So anyways, today the scriptures are Luke 22:42 that says, so this is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane before he's led to the cross.
Right.
And he says, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. And that's the big thing that we focus on for secondary leadership. And then also in Mark 10:42-45, Jesus says, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be a slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So from these two scriptures is where we get our value of secondary leadership. So can you define what secondary leadership is for us?
Yeah, for me, it feels like the picture of Jesus in the garden is the perfect way to actually start into that. He was here on assignment, and his assignment was ultimately to pay for the redemption of our soul. In other words, to redeem us back to the Father. And in order to do that, he had to sacrifice himself completely. So we have this, I think, a powerful gift that God gave us in that scripture of watching the Son actually go through the process of acknowledging, I know I'm here for a purpose. This is your will. So, but there's an element of my personal experience that I'm acknowledging I don't want to do this.
Right.
There's an element that acknowledges that I would rather do something different. But because I know this is your will and I'm submitted to you, I'm submitting that desire and I'm suppressing that or submitting it to the fulfillment of your objective. And my commitment is to follow through with what you've committed or commissioned me to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so that is, I feel like, an element of all of our throughout all of our life, but especially when it comes to serving together. We're going to be following leaders that sometimes call plays that we don't feel like is the best play to run, or we'll have other ideas or whatever. And so it's the idea that I'm going to face a situation where I would rather do something different, but because I'm committed to the bigger vision, because I'm committed to that purpose, I'm willing to actually submit my will to that, acknowledging perhaps to myself or to the Lord, I'd rather not do this, but because I want what you want,
Right.
this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow through with that.
Right. And so once again, this flies in the face of our current culture.
Oh, for sure.
Which, as we've said so many times, kingdom culture is just the exact opposite
Right.
of our normal culture is. Because our current culture is like, it's all, what do I want to do?
Right.
But yet at the same time, like I'm even thinking in like office environments, there's a boss, right? And that boss has a boss. And so there's always going to be an element of I'm doing what needs to be done or what's been delegated or directed for me to do. even if I don't agree, sometimes it's just, that's the nature of the job. And every job has highs and lows and things that we love and things that we don't love. But I think one thing, as all of our core values come back to, is there's a heart posture to it.
Right.
So it's not just I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but there's that submission, which again is so not normal in our culture.
Right.
And in fact, probably is bristling a few people as we're listening, of like, excuse me, I have to submit, but I don't want to.
Well, especially this one, all of them to some degree or another have this element in it, but especially this one only actually makes sense when you realize that I'm doing this in the context of intentionally connecting with and living in the kingdom of God. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not in that mindset, then all you have left to do is to try to figure out how to angle your opinion over the other person's opinion, and then this person with the strongest personality or the most persuasive skill set or whatever tends to win. And you really miss the point of what God's actually working on, because he's working on something far different than we realize. Mm-hmm. And so when we are facing that, for me, it helps to say, wait a second, remember, David, it's not what you want or even what you think. It's what is God doing. Mm-hmm. That's where you actually win in this particular dynamic. So if I'm thinking practically, how do I put myself in that? I have to remember I may be working in a secular world or on a job or whatever. But even in that context, Colossians 3:23 gives us that picture that we're actually to do everything that we're supposed to do as unto the Lord.
Right.
Not just for the people in front of us. Mm-hmm. And so it helps, to me, recalibrate that perspective again.
Right. Which you just referenced another one of our core values, which I believe that one's Today Matters. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
It fits Today Matters, and we win.
We win. They all connect, which I love. Okay, so what do you do? How would you speak to somebody who's like, okay, I am not the leader. I'm just a person on the job, part of the team, whether it be like a volunteer position at church or whether it be part of a staff in a marketplace position, who has this in their heart. Like I want to, okay, I'm going to take these kingdom principles and apply them, not just on a Sunday morning, but in my everyday life. But I just don't agree with the calls that the leader's making. And in fact, they might be borderline encroaching some boundaries or taking advantage of people. How would you advise that person in that situation?
Well, that's okay. How do we get into that? I feel like it's going to come back down to some individual experiences that are going on in that scenario. So there's a lot to me about that scenario that I'd like to know a little bit more of. So, can you sharpen that up again? And
so say
kind of narrow it down some.
Okay, I think if I was thinking from like a marketplace perspective, if there was a boss that was taking advantage of employees and it was encroaching on not being totally moral, that would be an easy, like, take that up with HR, have a conversation, that kind of thing. But if it's not, like, there's nothing bad going on, I just don't agree with the decisions they're making. But maybe let's speak to it from like our context of maybe you're serving on a dream team and even, maybe you're a greeter and the coach or the team lead is like, hey, let's, instead of serving every other week, the next little bit, we're going to ask you to serve weekly. And it's like, I just don't agree with that. And I want to have a heart that submits, but I think we're making the wrong call. What do we do?
Well, to me, the first step is going to go back to explore your own motives. Why am I in this position? What am I here for? Do I feel called to be in this spot?
Okay.
And then if the answer is yes, then I'm going to revisit the issue of, do I really have the capacity to do it, or am I just irritated that they're asking me for something else? And so then I'm going to answer that question, and likely it's going to be, I'm just a little frustrated that they're asking for something different. So I'm going to step back and say, I'm called to this function. I believe I'm really supposed to be here in this season. This is what they're asking of me. Can I actually do it? and maybe I need more information. What's really involved in that? Is it as complicated as it sounds like? Is it really as demanding as it feels like? Or am I just frustrated because it's something different?
Mm-hmm.
Once I get that information, then I take it back and say, can I really do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where I'm going to go back to the issue of secondary leadership to say, God, if you've called me here, then this is what they're asking of me. I don't feel like you're calling me to step out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So is there something else I can actually temporarily say, I'm going to pause doing that to create more capacity?
Right.
Because this is what I feel like you've called me to.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And so based on what you said, we're not just blindly saying, okay, whatever I'm asked to do, I'm just going to say yes. I'm just going to be a yes man, because
Right.
that's also not helpful.
Right.
So in having this heart of like, okay, I am submitted to you first, God, and this is what's in front of me, but still like we can ask questions. Okay. So maybe talk to that of in the heart of wanting to be honoring of leadership, whether it's a boss, a pastor, a team leader, whatever. But I want to honor, but yet I have some questions.
Mm-hmm.
What's a way that in an honoring way, or maybe even it's pushback, not necessarily can I have more information, but have we considered another option? What is a way that there's maybe put some words to like, how can we in an honoring way approach somebody in a leadership position of, I don't fully agree. Here's my heart. Help me see what I can't see. So we're not just blindly like, okay, yes, but then inside we're dying.
Right. Well, I feel like the actual authentic relationship you have with the person you're responding to is going to give you access then to be able to sit down and say to a leader, hey, when you're rolling this idea out, this is what I actually felt. And I'm admitting that I'm frustrated because I feel like it's more than what I signed up for, or it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I cherish or value our relationship, and I value the function that I feel called to serve in here. So I'd like to have a conversation with you to figure out where am I missing it? What perhaps I don't quote agree with that, because I think there's a different way to accomplish that or whatever it is, but I don't want to just leverage my opinion. I want to really find out what's the heart we're trying to accomplish, and is there something I don't see? And then you invite that conversation back from the leader, and in doing so, you're actually honoring the office that person's in, because remember, God is the one who puts people in offices.
Right.
And I think we, at some point, either have or will talk about the function of honoring the office that each other serves in, as what God is actually doing. So when we're in those conversations, I want to make sure I'm honoring that, and not just saying I don't like this person or I don't like this policy. But if there's something that's coming through that position, I need to figure out, Lord, what do I need to adjust in my own perspective? And that conversation with the leader can really help open that discussion up and really shine some light on that.
That's really good. But it goes back to just that it is a relationship. But I guess like, okay, say, what if it's in not within a church context, but just like business, and it's a boss. I guess there are some elements of relationship to that, but it's not like, hey, our relationship, because like we only have a 9-to-5 relationship, and it's not even really, it's a working relationship.
Right.
But I guess it would be the same thing of like this workplace culture that we have is really important, and I don't want to have tension, but I have to admit I'm really struggling with some of these changes or additions. Can you help me see what I can't see? Or I just want to submit, have you considered this? Instead of but that's really hard when you have a boss. Now, thank God I don't have a boss like this, but when you have a boss that's like, just do what I say because I said it.
Right.
So what about when there's no room for conversation like that? If we're working for a boss or have a leader that's like, it is what it is, and either go along or get out of the way.
Well, you have to actually step back and look at, okay, what's at stake here? So I'm in a job The job is actually providing for the welfare of my households. There's layers to this situation. And I feel like the answer is going to be by letting the Holy Spirit give you a perspective of looking at the picture once you build the framework of those layers. All right, this job is important. And is this something I can actually make the case of saying, I really want to show you there's a better way to get this done, or is it something I just feel like it's a personality contest, or those kinds of things? And so you're going to examine the value of your job itself, the opportunity you have to actually speak back into something. And then sometimes you're going to have to deal with the fact that there is no other way, and you have to just decide, no, I'm going to do what they say, not because I want to, but I value the job, I value the whatever it is, and it feels like that's what I'm supposed to do, even though I don't want to do that.
Right.
Other times, however, it may be worth actually pushing back into that person to say, I feel like I realize what you're asking me to do, but would you be willing to explore another option, another perspective, or is this something that you don't have the liberty to change? In other words, did you get this directive from someplace other than this, your own value or kind of leadership decision? Does that make sense? And so conversations really help themselves, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to figure out, what do I really feel like God is telling me to do here? And sometimes it's going to be, nope, express yourself and then yield. Or nope, express yourself and then push. But at the end of the day, it's not about trying to make a person look bad or take their position or those kinds of things. It's about what is the vision that needs to be accomplished. And is there a better way to get that done? And does the leader I'm talking to have the discretion to make those decisions, or is his or her hands tied? So it's never really a simple idea. It's a good conversation point to ask, but it's almost never that simple.
Yeah. But I also feel like there's something in that when we're in those spots of, it's like, okay, I don't feel like I'm supposed to leave, whether it's a job, even a church. I mean, the same thing could be said of being a part of a church where the pastor says, hey, here's the vision, here's what we're doing. And we're like, I don't agree with that. And it's not biblically wrong. We're not preaching heresy. It's just, I don't know if I agree with the direction that we're going. All of this, I feel like the easy way out in our minds is, that's it. I guess it's time to find a new church. Guess I'm looking for a new job or whatever. I'm joining a different team. But there is something to be said about the exercise of going all the way through, instead of my first inclination is, oh, I'm out, which almost feels like, whew, I don't have to do that. But actually our first response should be, okay, stop, hang on. God, it's not my will, it's your will. What are you doing through this? And I need to go have a courageous conversation.
That's so important. As you were going through the response, it hit me that one of the things that I feel like really speaks to this is Romans 8:28. That God is actually working in every circumstance for our good. And so what feels like often a challenge or a push against, or those kinds of things that somebody's taking advantage of me, I have to realize, wait a second, God is actually working here. And so I'm going to appeal to him and say, Lord, show me how to respond to this. But Romans 8:28 is a powerful perspective, because it reflects the fact that he's really working in those situations. They're not just inert, random developments in life, but he's actively working in every one of those points. And what he's working on is something that he wants to do in me. And then Romans 8:29 is, and I love this perspective because Romans 8:28 gets a lot of the attention. Because we encourage each other with that. Don't worry, he's working
all things together for our good.
And we're thinking, great, it's going to make me happy. But that's not the good he's talking about, because the good he's talking about is Romans 8:29, where it says, for those he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed into the image of his son. So the good he's working in us is the shaping he's doing in us in the process of working through the challenges. And so if I can keep that in mind, it gives me a little better handle to hold on to, because I may be facing a situation where in my mind, I'm like, I'm being taken advantage of. And I don't have any leverage here. And then I realize, wait a second, God is actually the one guiding my steps. Whether it's corporate, whether it's educational, whether it's spiritual, whether it's ministry, He is still God, and He's working on that. And so if I'm able to spin the perspective and say, wait, I was looking at this from what's my advantage here, or what do I want out of this, and then say, wait, God, what are you doing? I realize, wait a second, He's probably working something in me that He wants to do for me, and in order for that to be accomplished, I'm going to have to actually go through this hard thing.
Yeah.
And part of that is submitting my will, because the hardest thing in life is submitting our will. We want what we want.
Right.
Regardless of how rational or wise the wanter wants that for. We want what we want. And the biggest thing I feel like in life is learning how to submit that to God.
Right.
And for the record, when I feel like I'm getting really pushed into a corner here, and I'm having to make tough decisions in my own journey, I often go back to God and say, Lord, remind me what I'm here for. I'm on the planet not just to accomplish some purposes, but I'm on the planet for you to accomplish something in me.
Yeah.
And in my life, what you're working in me has as much to do with what eternity has as what I'm experiencing now.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that takes the urgency out of the situation and say, okay, God, I trust you.
Right.
So I'm going to lean into this, and I'm going to let you follow me. I'm going to follow your leadership and let you guide me through this.
There's something to be said about taking the urgency out of things. I feel like I've found myself recently, like if there's a goal I want to accomplish or something, and it's like, gosh, that's going to take forever, or that's never going to happen. And we have this urgency, or a conflict comes up. I got to respond to this right now. I got to handle this right now. But the reality is, we oftentimes don't have to do things right now. And even in this exercise we're talking about, these things might not be solved in one conversation. It might be multiple. It might be weeks of, okay, can I just ask you one more time? Hear my heart, but help me see.
Right. Oh, that's a great way to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great way to say that.
You should.
Wow,
you
that
should
felt
write a
really
book about
good.
that.
Hear my heart, but help me see. Man, thank you, Lord. That was cool. Okay, so we've talked a lot from the perspective of a person on a team reporting to a leader. But then we also, I want to speak to you having, at least within the context of our church, you are the leader over LifeLink Church. You and Mom together pastor this church. And so I just know you have had so many of these conversations with people where there's been pushback, there's been probably critiques, complaints, I don't understand. And maybe not even in the best heart of help me see what I can't see, but just I don't get it. Why are we doing this way? And arguments almost. So as a leader that people report to and that you pastor people's hearts, how do you handle those situations when somebody comes to you like, I don't get it and I don't like it?
Well, one of the things that we work through is the predetermined conviction that I'm here to serve this person. I'm not here to demand. I'm not here to lord over. I'm here to actually serve them. And part of that is casting clear vision for what we believe God's showing us to do in this situation. And then helping them either find a way to align their hearts with that, or there are times where we feel like God's showing us what to accomplish, and then the person's saying, hey, there's a better way to accomplish that. And it's honestly to say, well, let me see what you see. And so a lot of times, if there is the opportunity to do so, we'll approach this as a conversation to explore. What do you see? What do we feel like to you when we're casting this vision? And it's just the humility of recognizing that we're people, and we don't always get everything 100% right. And part of the way we lead with effectiveness is to say, this is the conviction that God's given us. It looks like this. And then when somebody challenges that, it gives us the ability to examine that again and say, okay, God, sharpen this up.
Yeah. Is
there something we're supposed to see here? And sometimes there is. And when we do that, then we say, you know what, I learned something out of this conversation. And it'll help me actually either cast the vision with more clarity, or it gives me something to go back to God and say, Lord, is there something I'm supposed to see in this? And is there a dynamic or an element that needs to be adjusted here? And so that's a value that we have, is we lead people, but we do it through serving.
Right. Which I feel, do you maybe it was like when you were younger, did you ever feel like in order to be a good leader, you had to know everything and be the strongest one in the room?
100%.
So how did you grow through that?
Yeah. Well, it just dawns on you along the way that generally speaking, we all as people tend to do what we think is right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a psychopath that actually doesn't care about what's right and just
Right.
goes to vandalize or destroy something.
Yeah.
But most people aren't psychopaths. They're
Right.
actually trying to do what they think is right or they feel is okay to want, those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things. And so I remember growing through different layers of this question where I felt like, no, this is right. And then there often was a sense of I've got to defend this,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an element of justice to it. And then I realized as I went through it, oh, that wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. And then in hindsight, I realized, oh, God was doing something big in this. And so I just missed the whole point altogether. I thought it was about this.
Right.
And then he showed me he was working on this part of my character. And so enough of those times makes me realize, wait a second, I have a current vantage point or a current opinion or perspective on what the issue is. But I'm always going to leave God some space because I realize that that's still happening to me. Your mother and I are the primary leaders of LifeLink Church, but this is not our church. We're still serving.
Yeah.
And so the vision is not for sale because the vision is something we believe God showed us that we're supposed to steward the influence we have to accomplish what He's leading us to accomplish. So the vision isn't for sale. But that doesn't mean sometimes there aren't better ways to get that done. And it used to be, I felt like, no, it has to be my way. And I thought my way actually meant getting it done. And I felt like if somebody spoke a different response back to that or said, have you thought about this? It was them disrespecting me,
Wow.
disrespecting God. And I was like, sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are just bullies.
Yeah.
But most of the time they're not. They're just trying to figure out, is this the right way to do that? And so it's like, if you ever, I know you have, let's say Emma is talking to you and you're saying, no, I want you to get this account. I want you to go clean your room.
Yeah.
And then she gives you attitude back.
Oh, that would be Nova.
Or Nova.
Yeah.
And then there are moments when you're like, no, the attitude is the problem. So I'm not going to bend on this because
Right.
your attitude is what is the issue. But sometimes you go, I heard what you said, but I'm going to ignore how you said it because I want to connect with who you are.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times in leadership, when people blow up in your face, that's pain or
Yeah.
immaturity. They don't understand something. And so as a wise leader, I want to sit down with that person and say, show me what you're really saying.
Wow.
What do you see? And then I hear that and I receive that. I take that under advisement, but here's what we're called to do. And right now, this is what we're still going to do. And I invite you to either align yourself with that or let me help you find a spot that actually would be a good fit for you.
Right.
If that's where you're at in your own mindset. Because I don't want to kick people off the bus
Right.
if they just need to be in a different seat.
That's so good. And that's so much more healthy of a response than like, well, if you can't get in line, then figure it out. Like you're not,
Right. Well,
you're not part of the team.
you have to pastor people's heart.
Yeah.
You can't. It's short-sighted to try to get them to capitulate and just work on their behavior or their
Yeah.
production. At the end of the day, when we pastor people or lead people, we're really pastoring them, not their behavior. And so for me, it's worth trying to get through some of the irritants or the turbulence to connect with them and then find a way to help them see, here's what God's actually working on. And there is an opportunity for you to see, I think, what's a blind spot for you. And when you're able to do that with a person one time, there's something that clicks in them. And they go, they leave the conversation, the emotion kind of drains out of it, and they realize you actually were working on my behalf. And I initially thought you were just trying to get me to do something.
Right.
And I realized what you were doing is, no, you dug in and said, this is what I think God's trying to accomplish in you, and I want you to see it.
Yeah.
And that person then, for the next time or two, has that in their memory, and they step back into the conversations, and they'll be a little more pliable the next time and say, help me see what I don't see.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's so good.
And so but every leader has a different approach or different philosophy. That's just ours.
Yeah.
So secondary leadership to us is we're not leading LifeLink based on what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually, if I actually got what I wanted or tried to do what I want, there are several things at LifeLink that wouldn't be the way they are.
Right.
But I'm not here to get what I want or whatever's expedient for me.
Mm.
I'm actually supposed to use my influence to accomplish what God wants done.
Mm-hmm.
And often that is much more sacrificial on my part, because if I got what I want, I would not be a secondary leader. I'd be a demanding
Dictator.
tyrant and say, no, you do this. And I said
Right.
that's the way it is, and it's going to be that way, or you're going to hit the high road and there's 10 people that want your job.
Wow. Yeah.
But I can't be that way because it doesn't work that way.
Right. And these things apply not just within our church, but I can see even within families and anywhere, because it's kingdom,
Right.
and it's not just for Sunday.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful that you guys lead the way that you do, because again, like we've mentioned, it changes the atmosphere, the temperature of our church. And you can feel that when you're here, there's an openness. It's clear who's quote unquote in charge. Like, we're very honoring to leaders, and yet there's this mutual honor where it's not just, you got to do what I say because I'm the leader, but I honor you and your gifting. You honor the position that I serve in, and there's openness and there's freedom to have these conversations.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, we know we're going to walk away from this conversation. There's going to be a decision made, but both parties were heard.
Right.
And we'll have these conversations as many times as we need to, because the win isn't the goal accomplished, it's the heart.
Right.
And is our heart close to each other and close to God?
I love the way you just said that. And it makes me think about the actual expense of this approach. This approach is not an easy approach, and it's not a fast approach.
No.
Often a leader may take a different vantage point and say, no, we're going to score on the behavior. We're going to actually score on the outcome. Did you produce or get out of the way? And so sometimes churches grow faster that way because you just sort through people, and
Right.
there's carcasses everywhere, but the church grows.
Right.
And so long time ago, your mother and I decided we are not going to be that kind of leader. We're going to be the kinds of leaders that actually evaluate the person we're talking to in the moment, and then actually speak to the issues that they're bringing, knowing that there'll be people around them or us who would look at that conversation and say, man, that was weak. You should have done this, or you should have pitched them out a long time ago, or those kinds of things. And you're like, no, that's not what we're doing, because that's not how it works. And so it's not as fast, it's not as efficient.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it does give us the opportunity eventually to connect with people's hearts. And at the end of the day, when we step into eternity, it's how did I steward my influence in a person's heart,
Right.
not what behavior did I get out of them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. And that's not to say that every big church is,
Yeah.
led
I'm
by,
really glad you said that. I don't mean
dictators. That's not
and
it at all.
tyrants.
But there's different family values in every church, just like every family. And there's different, we can't compare one thing to the other. All we can focus on is, God, what are you doing here? What are you doing in me? And how do I choose to respond to that? So that's a really good perspective. I think we've got a little firmer grasp on secondary leadership.
We at least started a discussion.
We did. But what I love, I want to go back and listen to this one, because I feel like I'll be able to apply, and I know this value, but I feel like even I'll be able to apply this to some conversations, and like this, I feel like is a really good one to keep in the pocket for, I'm about to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Let's go back. What did that say again? Not my will, Lord, but yours be done. So I think that's really good.
Good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here.
All right. Good to be here.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
We'll
see you guys.